What up, y'all? I just want to give a little update video. It's the last week of June, and I kind of want to show where the whole farm stands as of right now, and what our plans are, and and what's happening. So let's get into it. So we're at the front of the farm, which is where the market garden is. For the most part, the whole market garden is under cover crop with sorghum sudan grass. I do have a few blocks that do have crops growing, like this block that I still have cranking on okra and peppers. The okra I kind of been letting go, haven't been picking as much, but I've been still picking plenty of peppers each week in here, and they're still thriving. I am considering coming through here, doing a little hand weeding. There's some peppers that are tumbling over, kind of pruning, and just kind of tying up and clean up the space. Our mid tree lines in the gardens are looking pretty good. I still been slowly trying to, I still have sorghum sudan grass planted in on the outside of these beds, and I'm slowly transitioning it to the red Napier grass. Same thing, these center tree lines. This Mobasa I've actually been cutting every 2 weeks now. But yeah, so sorghum sudan grass for the most part is our cover crop. It's what all of our blocks are looking like. This is actually my favorite cover crop to grow, just because it's easy to terminate with the tools that I have. So we continue on. Here's a block of some Thai long beans that we actually just started picking this week. This is what they are. Coming here now. Actually, I've been coming here almost every other day now, picking. So this is one that I'm going to start bringing into market next week and start offering to chefs. With these, you have to get them pretty young if you want them tender. Once you kind of start seeing the ripples and the seeds forming, and then you really don't want to eat them. They become super fibrous and a little tough. These aren't like your tender green standard bushing green beans, but they're still good. Blanch them, saute them, throw them in soups and stews, even just stew them on their own with some tomatoes. It's been really good. But yeah, so we continue on our sweet potato patch. I do have a couple rows that are pretty patchy. I am going to come through here and do a quick cultivation. Same thing here, our second patch of sweet potatoes. And again, I'll come through here with the cultivator and do a little hand weeding. But another thing that happened that I'm also letting go, I previously had eggplant in this block, and I mowed it real low and did a shallow cultivation, but there's a lot of eggplants that decided to pop back up, and they're looking super healthy. So I'm actually gonna let them go, which gets me thinking on my next round of eggplants, actually kind of growing it more so like a perennials and cutting it back at the base, which I'm actually considering doing it with my peppers. Again, still, like every block is covered crop for the most part with sorghum sudan grass. These center tree lines are looking good. We started removing the Mobasa out of this block. I have to come through and do a little bit of weeding here. But we started planting that red Napier in there, which it seems like now it's starting to finally come up now, which I just knocked that up, but it's now starting to push through. Yep, there it is. That red Napier is pushing through. So eventually, as I start attaining more propagation material, I'll slowly start transitioning out all these grass lines into that Napier grass line. Pineapple patch underneath my cedar tree is cranking. I have a bunch of new propagation of or new slips of pineapples coming in now, which I'll be planting in the back system. I have some roselle growing towards the back, which I'll kind of keep prune and pack in some pineapples in really tight within that same line. as we continue walking through the tunnels. I've been working. I just got done really removing the tomatoes a couple weeks ago. Tilled this in, and I'm actually gonna tarp it. I've been watering it in. I'm about to bring in the tarp later today, do a little pre-emergent and trying seeding or weed seeds, or pre-emerge the weed seeds, and just keep it covered and kind of really push back on that weed pressure. And I will be planting mostly a lot of the brassica. So I'm gonna try and push some baby brassica greens through the summer months. Since I have these protective culture, these tunnels to protect them, every day we've been getting some pretty heavy solid rain and some good wind. So it'll be definitely ideal to be planting underneath here so they're not getting hammered. And then also my moringas in between now have really started flushing out, and as the weeks go by, it'll just keep casting a lot more shade. I already started direct sowing some seeds here. I'll be covering that. That'll be my next session. And then over here, I'm actually starting to spread compost. I'm gonna lay it in thick, working into the soil. And then after that gets planted and covered, I'm just gonna go ahead and bring the tarp over here, cover it, let all those weed seeds emerge, and then kill it. Same thing here. I'll be weed whacking the edge, dropping a ton of compost, and then covering it with the tarp. A sugarcane line on the outside along this access road in the garden. I actually started coming through here weeding it with the weed whacker, and then hand removing any larger stubborn weeds. I'm actually going to come with the tractor and dump a bunch of mulch on the side of it and like really kind of hill it up a bit. And I'm going to do that straight down the line, especially towards down here. I feel like it needs a lot more mulch and to keep the soil more covered. All right, as we move on, my little privacy tree line that I'm establishing is coming in real strong ever since the rains and the heat set in. Same thing with this little system along our pack room. It's kind of having a little demo site. This is looking in really lush. As we move to the back systems, yeah, the heat and rain has actually been pretty solid. I feel like it could kind of tone back on the rain a tad bit. Literally every time it rains, we're getting about anywhere between half an inch to an inch. And this has been going on every day. So here's the back system. This was all planted at the beginning of the month. Yeah, we're at the beginning of June. Roselle's coming in strong. I'll do a little bit weed whacking and a little weeding here. Keep trying to keep the soil covered. And then in between all the roselle, I'm gonna go ahead and just start planting a full line of pineapples there. To get something in quick, I direct sowed some sunflowers. So I realized I can keep cranking out sunflowers during the summer months with no problem and bring it to market. So on the outside, I have single stemmed type cut flowers. Then in the center, I have bunching sunflowers, which this will be in here long term. The single cut or single stem sunflowers is one and done after you cut it. So I'll harvest it, cut the stem real low, and throw it into the system, or feed it into the tree line. And then I have my little bit of a longer term branching type sunflowers, which will go a little bit longer into the season that I could keep picking from it. And I also planted Mavuna cowpea just to kind of get a ground cover. So what I'll end up doing here is cultivating this bed probably by the beginning of next week. And then yeah, as soon as I'm done cultivating, that'll be close to the time that everything will be flushing out and really building a canopy to keep that ground covered. Here's a single alley crop or a single row of okra. I have it planted 8 inches apart. And then in between all that, again, Mavuna cowpeas. Just try and lay it in thick, keep the ground cover. This cowpea is gonna spread out pretty vigorously, and through filling this whole entire alleyway. When I come in here to harvest or ready to harvest the okra, I'll just keep weed whacking it back and keep pruning it back. But that's the plan for this line. The squash down this center line isn't doing too well. I might go ahead and just let it play out and see what happens. But I have eggplants in the nursery. They'll get ready to get transplanted by the end of July. So this actually will become an eggplant line, which I'll end up planting eggplant and okra within the same line. And yeah, that's essentially it. The squash is just getting a little bit buggy, so it's stressing, it's not happy. But like I said, I'm just gonna let it play out to do its thing. If it grows wild and at least keeps the ground cover, I'm cool with that. If I get a crop out of it, that's fine. But I think by the end of this month or by the end of July, it'll just be terminated if it gives me something or not. These tree lines that we established back in the beginning of this month is looking good, along with the Mombasa. I actually still need to come through and plant Mombasa in between those Tithonia. I really want to have lines of Mombasa on each side in this back system, so I could keep chopping and dropping into this system and into these alley crop aisles. Papaya, moringa, everything through here is looking real strong. We did a heavy pruning also at the beginning of this month, and really opened this up, cut back on this Tithonia, cut it real low, started going through and filling in gaps, which I still have plenty of gaps to fill in that I need to come back in here and keep dropping some seeds and more support. Transplanted some eucalyptus to fill in the gaps of what didn't take from last year. But that's essentially it. Now the peach orchard. We officially started retrofitting the peach orchard all the way through. I did a video on about our plans of how we're going about it, but this is essentially it. Just making these islands or these little nests in between all the peaches. I've been going through tilling. After we're done tilling, I drop a scoop of compost. After we drop the scoop of compost, I drop 2 scoops of mulch, and then we'll come through and transplant bananas and eucalyptus, and then I have a whole seed bomb cocktail. Another thing I'm also going to add to the mix that I thought of after really thinking more through is I'll be planting mulberries as well in between all these peaches. Since I've run poultry up and down these lines, kind of thought it would be nice to add a bunch of mulberries next to or near every peach. So when it's mulberry season, I could just let the fruit kind of fall down to the ground, and then it's more forage that the birds could consume. So once we're actually done planting this whole system and it gets pretty well established, I'm actually planning on doing a follow-up video. The last system, which we did a little bit of intervention, at least in the banana lines, but I still need to come through and intervene and manage the center lines, which I have my guavas, which is sticking out right here, and the mangoes as well in this whole system. I just need to come through and give some light. There's some things that I've transplanted here that's just getting pretty hit hard or getting covered by some of this cowpea and also some of this roselle that I actually let volunteer. The roselle I'm actually probably going to remove completely of the system and just chop and drop it and feed into it, and then give more light to at least like some eucalyptus, because I think some of the eucalyptus is actually starting to get a little shaded out, and some of the moringa is getting a little shaded out by some of the jack beans and mavunas. These Napier grass I'm actually been letting get a little tall. because this is what I'm using to propagate through different spots of the farm. So I really want some tall, thick canes that I could just chop into, what is it, about 8-10 inch sticks to plant elsewhere in different systems. I'll also come here through with a string trimmer, cut this back real hard, and also plant Tithonia on this outside of this banana line. I was gonna do it after we intervene into the system, but life happens and lost track of times and got caught up with other projects, and also have a family, so that keeps me occupied. But yep, same thing. The jack beans actually planted back here are for a seed crop. I'm trying to beef up on my inventory on jack bean. I do have cassava planted. This is actually Shane Yellow. It's pretty sporadic. Some of the clippings of cassava that I planted didn't take. So I'm mostly growing this out for propagation material, not to harvest, so I could keep planting elsewhere. And then I think next year, spring, hopefully to have enough that I'll probably do a full 200-foot line of cassava. Same thing back here. I just need to come through and weed whack, and I'll eventually just be planting a support or full line of originally I had pineapples here, but I have such a heavy weed pressure back here. It's mostly nutsedge, so I'm gonna plant other things that are more vigorous to really help suppress that nutsedge. Once you shade out the nutsedge completely, it slowly just dies back. And yeah, that's essentially it. So we'll be removing whatever pineapples are still left behind, planting them elsewhere, planting Napier back here, and then another line of Napier up here. And then same thing, I need to kind of come back and plant Tithonia on the outside of my banana lines. And also I need to really prune these back heavy, because I don't have enough emergent species planted within these lines, and it really needs it. So so I'll probably come in here, do a little hand weeding, cut back a little harder on the bananas, and then I have plenty of eucalyptus in the nursery to transplant it. So that's about it, y'all. That's a quick little update video on where the farm stands this time of year. Again, we're the last week of June, just right at the beginning of summer. And yeah, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them there for me. I would love to hear what you all have to say. Until then, take it easy, y'all.